Hello, hello, and welcome to this very special edition of ESPN FC Live with myself, Alexis Nunes, and I've got our two big boys here, Marc, Ogden, and Rob Dawson, because we're going to talk about England. Gareth Southgate has named his provisional squad, considering we are just less than a month away from the European Championships, and so many headlines to talk about, guys. I bet you can't wait to sink your teeth into this one. We are going to start with the omissions because, of course, there are some big names that are going to be missing out in the Euros, and those names are right there, led by Marcus Rashford, Ben Chilwell, no Reece James. A lot of people will be sad about this one, even though we do know his injury woes. He's definitely a player that I'm sure England would always love to have, or so we thought. Jordan Henderson and Raheem Sterling. So, my days. It's almost like, who do I start with first? You know what? Augie, let me start with you first, because you love to be the bearer of bad news. We'll get to Jordan Henderson, because at 33 years old, he's probably realizing that he's closer to the end of his career. But Marcus Rashford, 26 years old, smack dab in the middle of his career. We know it's been probably one of the worst seasons he's had to endure at Manchester United. But still, this is a bit of a surprise, would you think?
Well, it's a surprise because Marcus Rashford, because he's the name and the reputation of Marcus Rashford. You know, he's one of the biggest names at Man United, one of the biggest names in the Premier League. But you know, if it wasn't Marcus, if it was just a player that an ordinary player, look at his stats, you think, well, he's got no chance of being in the England squad. His performances this season have not been up to it. I mean, I just made note of his stats: 8 goals in 42 appearances this season. Now, last year was 13.56, and that was his kind of best year in the United shirt. He had that fantastic run in the sense of scoring, you know, basically United in the Champions League last season. But the year before that, he scored 5 and 32. So Marcus Rashford has had a real kind of up and down last 2 or 3 years. And this year he's really gone off the boil. He's not happy at Man United. His performance has been poor. His goal scoring has been poor. His awareness of his teammates has been poor. Off the field, he's had a few issues as well. And you know, it's all stacking up to the point where Gareth Southgate's probably thinking it's just not worth the risk. But then again, he's named 12 forwards in his preliminary squad, and he can't even make a list of 12, which is a real indictment of Marcus Rashford, really, because if you had to say name the best 12 English forwards, he would be in it. A little bit of me is surprised in the sense that I was at Wembley in I think November when Rashford came off the bench and scored against Italy, and it felt like that he was in a happier place with England. I think getting away from United was good for him, but I just think Gareth Southgate looked at the options he's got available and thought he just can't justify having Marcus Rashford, and he simply can't. You know, it's quite sad, but I think really at 26, this is probably a reality check for Rashford. At this stage of his career, he's at a crossroads. Where does he go now? Does he kind of stink without trace? You know, we've seen people like Dele Alli go that way. Or does he find something to kickstart his career out at Man United or somewhere else? But it'll hurt him missing out on the Euros. Definitely hurt him. But it has to be a positive, and the positive should be that he's got a summer off. He can rest. He can recuperate. He can get himself focused again, and then go again as a Man United player next season. But there's a lot of big question marks over him on and off the pitch now.
Yeah, well, Gareth Southgate, the England manager, is speaking as we speak, Rob, and he said that, look, these are difficult calls with Marcus. I just feel other players in that area have had better seasons. It's as simple as that. It's hard to argue with him there, but as Augie pointed out, this is a provisional squad. Gareth Southgate is going to cut it down right before the Euros, and just the fact that he's not made it, even though he has endured a tough season, it's a massive blow, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I am a little bit surprised that Marcus isn't in, given that Gareth Southgate has shown time and time again that he's gone back to the players that he trusts. We've seen that in other squads, and I think on those grounds, you perhaps would have expected Marcus to be in, because Marcus has been with Gareth Southgate since he took over as England manager. But Marc is right. You know, when you start looking into his stats in the season he's had, it's hard to justify his place. And you mentioned there that Southgate has said that he's quite well stocked in that same position. He's got players like Cole Palmer, Anthony Gordon, Eze at Palace, who have all had great seasons, and particularly at the end of the season. And at the moment, Marcus Rashford can't even get in Man United's team. You know, he has had a little bit of a spell out of the team because of injury, but he's back now and he's not starting. There's a massive game for Man United at the weekend against City in the FA Cup final. And Marcus Rashford isn't guaranteed to start. In fact, it would be a surprise if he did start. So if he can't get a game for Man United, then why should he be playing for England? I think it's a combination of things. He's had a poor season. There are other players, as Southgate has rightly said, who have had good seasons in that position. You know, other areas of the squad, I'm sure we'll talk about later, aren't as well stocked as that position. So it's a combination of factors. And ultimately, as Marc said, Marcus has only got himself to blame because if he had a good season, if he'd been on form for Man United, he would be the first name in that squad.
Yeah, it is definitely a massive blow from here, Augie. But do you feel like this? I know you were trying to point out that he probably has the summer off now to do a lot of work. Could this be a blessing in disguise some way, somehow? Because as we keep saying, yes, Jordan Henderson, a big omission, but 33 years old, Marcus Rashford, 26 years old. You surely don't want to think that he is ending what started out as what would have been one of the best England players that we probably would have seen.
Yeah, but you know something? Some players, they have a good start as kids, and Marcus Rashford burst onto the scene in 2016, and he was the future. But they fade away. And going back over the years, people like Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler, Wayne Rooney, even you could say that their best days were in the early 20s. By the time they got to the mid to late 20s, their best was behind them, and it's sad to say. But Marcus Rashford could be that same player. But I think the difference with Marcus Rashford to those players is that he's not really had the bad injuries that they had. So there's no reason why you can't go again. And I will kind of have a little bit of sympathy for Marcus Rashford because I do think that over the years he's had the misfortune of being in a bad Man United team. So that hasn't helped his development. At times he's had to carry that team, the pressure that he's had to be under to do it. And it must be hard. He's a young footballer at the end of the day. And I think as talented as he is, he's probably looked around him at times thinking, these players around me aren't good enough. And at times the coaches haven't been good enough. And I don't think that he's been developed at Man United as he would have been at Man City. Had he gone to Man City under Pep Guardiola, for instance, you'd probably be talking about Marcus Rashford as a world beater right now. So there are mitigating factors, but ultimately it's down to him. And I've heard a lot of Marcus Rashford this year off the pitch. He's done these big interviews explaining why certain situations were arose and this, that, and the other. He's talked too much, really. He needs to get on the pitch and let his football do the talking, but that hasn't been the case for a long time now. And it seems that whenever Marcus Rashford is in the news these days, it's for something that's off the pitch or his reaction. We saw his reaction to fans at the weekend. We've heard him talk about, why he struggled. I do think that Marcus Rashford needs to kind of just focus on the football. He's definitely a talented player. He's got pace. He can score goals, but he just doesn't look happy at Man United, and that has now led to him being omitted from the England squad for a major tournament. So maybe he needs a move. But as Rob will tell you, that he's on a big contract, a long contract. He's probably stuck at Man United because nobody can afford to take him out of it. So if that's the case, he has to knuckle down and just get his career back on track at Man United.
Rob, I know you definitely get close enough to Marcus's camp as well. How do you feel? Obviously, this would be a big disappointment, but as we said, after the season that we've seen, it's almost hard to build a defense here, is it?
Yeah, I mean, he's played in a poor Man United team. I mean, Mark's right that ever since he came through, he's played in a poor Man United team. This season, they've been particularly poor. It's hard for attacking players in particular to play in teams that aren't giving those attacking players the opportunity to show what they can do. So there are mitigating factors. I think probably he has to take responsibility himself for his form. Everyone will know that he's had disciplinary problems as well, which are all down to him. That's nothing to do with Man United. That's nothing to do with the team. That's all down to him. That at the very least is not a good look. And I think Marc is right. He is at a little bit of a crossroads now. United have said that their financial position this summer means that they will listen to realistic offers for most of their players. Marcus Rashford is one of those, but he's on a long contract. He only signed a new contract in the summer. He's one of United's highest paid players, probably the highest paid player. And so the list of clubs who could afford to take him are probably limited to around about one, and that's PSG, who at the moment have shown no sign that they are interested in signing him. So in terms of the future, it looks like he's going to stay at Man United. While he's there, he will be a key part of that squad because it's Marcus. He's from Manchester. He's kind of the face of that team. And ultimately now it's up to him to knuckle down and to do the things that he was doing last season, and got him that good run of form after the World Cup and saw him score 30 goals for the first time in his career. The only way that you can spin this as a positive is because he might get a summer off. He has played an awful lot of games for a player who's only 26. He's played a lot of games with injuries. His count will tell you that he went 2 years without playing a game completely injury-free. He's had operations on his shoulder and other operations on his body that haven't helped. Really, he has to look at this now as a positive. Go away on a holiday after the FA Cup final, get yourself fully fit, get yourself rested, and when you go back into pre-season training with Man United in the summer, hit the ground running and show people how good you are. Show people you're still that same Marcus Rashford. and that you're not, you know, in the middle of his career that shows signs of tailing off. You need to prove people wrong now.
Yeah, well, definitely some work there for Marcus to ponder on. Let's move on now to Jordan Henderson as well. He was the other big name of omission, because it has been pretty much over a decade since Jordan Henderson has not been a part of an England squad for a major tournament. Augie, we know that he's someone that Gareth will call on for any and everything. He's definitely one of the more experienced players I'm sure England would have loved to have for a tournament like this. But Southgate said that the determining factor was the fact that he picked up an injury in the last England camp, was out for 5 weeks, and was unable to get back to the level of intensity that he would like him to be at. But you feel there's a bit more to it, probably based on the season he's had and the decisions he made?
I mean, he's had a terrible season. I mean, let's be honest, he's made one bad season after another, Jordan Henderson, because, you know, I was at Anfield on the final day of the season when Jurgen Klopp did his farewell, and there were Jarell Quansah, Joe Matip were given a guard of honour. They were given a trophy presentation by the club, and all these coaches were given a presentation. That should have been Jordan Henderson, really. Jordan Henderson decided last summer that he didn't think he'd play enough games for Liverpool, so he had to move on. He would have played more games, you know, he would have played 20, 25 games, but he chose to go to Saudi Arabia, and, you know, for all the off-field issues that he's been criticised for, you know, and rightly so, the on-field issue was the one that got me, because he was going to a league where, with a major tournament at the end of the season, to play in the Saudi Pro League at one of the, you know, mid-ranking teams was just a terrible decision, and it didn't work out for him. And he ended up going to Ajax, another move to a division that isn't the quality it should be or used to be. So, you know, Jordan Henderson only has himself to blame for making a series of bad decisions, whether it was based on money, based on playing, whatever it was. They've all backfired, and he doesn't deserve to be in the England squad. He doesn't deserve to be in for his form. He doesn't deserve to be in because he's been playing in basically backwaters for the last 12 months, because the standard he's been playing has been good enough. So, yes, his experience would have been helpful around the squad. Now, I look at the options that Gareth Southgate has picked to midfield. It's a very inexperienced group. You know, you've got Adam Wharton, you've got Kobbie, Mainoo, and you've got Curtis Jones as well. There's not many caps there. And I think if you suddenly gets the Euros and Declan Rice gets injured, you've got a problem. But even that aside, Jordan Henderson doesn't deserve to be in the squad. So he's just paying for a bad year, and, you know, he'll have a long summer to reflect on two terrible decisions that have left him out of the England squad and facing up to, you know, where does he go next? Is he going to stay at Ajax? But nobody cares now, because he's at the England picture, and he's basically faded away. And it's a shame, because he's the guy that lifted most of the trophies that Jurgen Klopp Liverpool won.
Like he said, playing in the backwaters. Oh, my days. Rob, let me come to you now for some positivity. Well, I guess so, because I want to talk about Jadon Sancho before we actually talk about who's actually in the squad. So no Jadon Sancho, despite making it to a Champions League final. It probably came a little too late for Gareth Southgate. But does his omission, I suppose, surprise you somewhat? Because you know what they say, you're only as good as your last game, and his last couple of games have been really good.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a player that's not played for England for a long time. I think Gareth Southgate values character as well as, you know, on-field abilities. He's very keen to keep a really tight-knit, good group, especially when you go away to a major tournament, because it is a really difficult atmosphere to be away for that long. You need to make sure that the atmosphere and things in the group is absolutely spot on. You know, I think Jadon Sancho has done really well in the latter rounds of the Champions League. I don't think he was playing particularly well for Dortmund when he first went back from Man United. I went to Dortmund for one of the Champions League semi-finals, the first leg, and lots of their fans were saying that he hadn't really played particularly well until that first leg against PSG, which is when he kind of, you know, showed everyone again what a talented footballer is. I think you're probably right. I think his upturning form has just come a little bit too late, and he's probably run into the same problem that Marcus Rashford has a little bit, in that you've got Cole Palmer, Anthony Gordon, Eze, who have all played really well this season and are all probably ahead of him in the pecking order. I think maybe if they hadn't been as well stocked in that position, that maybe that you could turn to Jadon Sancho and say you're worth a spot in the 30-man squad because of what you've done in the latter rounds of the Champions League. But I think with the options that Southgate's got available in that position, I think that whatever Sancho did in the Champions League has come just a little bit too late.
Well, let's talk about now people who are in this squad. So is a Luke Shaw, even though Gareth Southgate has said that he is really, really up against it. And we do know that his specific position there on the England team is one that they probably could use all the reinforcements for. Oggy, and like I said, we have to reiterate that this is a provisional squad. Gareth Southgate is going to cut it down. And with him admitting Oggy, that Luke Shaw is really up against it based on the injuries that he's had, and we know he tends to have. What do you make of his inclusion in the team, and whether or not we will actually see him in the final squad?
Well, I'm not surprised that he's in, a bit like the Rashford decision. I think Luke Shaw is because he's a left back, and there's no left back. Ben Chilwell's out. There's no problem on the left side of the defence. So I think in ordinary circumstances he wouldn't be in the squad because he's not played enough. And I think even if he gets himself back on the pitch between now and the end of the season this weekend, and it's hard to see him playing in the FA Cup final. Even if he plays one of the games in the friendly games, Luke Shaw takes a long time to get over injuries. When he's been out of the side for a while, it does take a while to get his fitness back. So you're gambling on so many elements here. And I think if he goes to the Euros not fully fit, will he be fit enough to play? And then, Luke Shaw probably he's been at Man United for 10 years now. It's been 10 years of injury situations, loss of form, not playing. Luke Shaw probably needs to miss this tournament in the sense that if he missed the tournament, he has summer to fully recover, because if he goes to the Euros and picks up another injury or has more fitness issues, it's going to have a knock-on effect the next season. And I think because he's missed so much football at Man United, really, I think being at the Euros could do more harm than good. He's not played, and it's just a bad situation to be in. But I understand Southgate's decision in the sense that he has no other left backs, so it's basically the only option available to him. It's not a great option, but I do think from Luke Shaw's perspective on it, taking isolation, if he doesn't go to the Euros, it's for his benefit not to go. But obviously, if he gets selected, he wouldn't turn it down. But I think maybe you have to read the room a little bit and think, what does this look like at Man United if I go to the Euros and having missed so much football this season? But again, it's hard to turn down a major tournament.
Yeah, Rob, what do you make on Luke Shaw's inclusion?
I think it's desperation. I think it's nothing but desperation. You look at that squad, there's one recognised left back in that squad in Luke Shaw, who hasn't played since February and has barely played all season. Southgate will be praying that somehow Luke Shaw somehow proves his fitness. Probably not even for the group stages, for the knockout rounds. That's what he'll be gambling on. He'll want Luke Shaw at St George's Park to take a proper look at him, to speak to him and say, what can you give me? And that's the only reason that he could possibly be in the squad. Because you look at the other options there. You've got Kieran Trippier, who's a right back who can play at left back. You've got Joe Gomez, again, not a left back, who can play there.
Yeah.
As far as I can see, there's no one else. So the only reason Shaw is in there is because there has to be a tiny, tiny hope that he might be fit for the knockout rounds, which is a massive risk going into a major tournament. That there can be no other reason that Luke Shaw is in that squad. Because in terms of, if you're using the injury line to say, well, we can't pick Jordan Henderson and we can't probably pick Calvin Phillips, or you can't then go and pick Luke Shaw because Luke Shaw's been as injured as the rest of them. It's desperation. It's as simple as that.
All right, well, let's talk about more positive notes now, shall we? Some of the good stuff that England have included and have been able to call on, especially in attack, because it does present Gareth Southgate, I suppose, with a bit of a conundrum, because, of course, Phil Foden has to be in there. He is Player of the Year. So is Cole Palmer, who is coming off of an amazing, amazing season for Chelsea, probably the brightest spark of Chelsea's season so far. You do have the likes of Bukayo Saka as well, Ivan Toney, Eberechi Eze, who's finally been included. Oggy, this has been a shout for, I think, anybody who has watched Crystal Palace for some time right now. He is an absolute baller. What do you make of his inclusion?
Yeah, I think Eze is a very deserved pick. I think there's a lot of players on that list that, at the start of the season probably wouldn't have been on anyone's list, but I think they deserve to be there. I think Anthony Gordon is another one. I think he's had a great season. I think his selection is a reward for the progress he's made at Newcastle. And Anthony Gordon, I think, has probably cost Marcus Rashford his place rather than Eze. I think Anthony Gordon is, he's got that. He can play on the left. He's got a great pace. He scores goals. He's got better awareness than Marcus Rashford. So I think if it came down to those two, you're going Anthony Gordon. Eze, I think Eze is a great player, but something. I think he might be one that misses the cut. I just think you look what he offers. I think he's exciting, but I think Southgate might go for players that he knows a little bit But I think Eze is obviously destined for big things, but maybe his time is a little bit late. But I do think he deserves to be in this kind of enlarged squad. But I do think when it comes to the final squad, he probably won't make it. But there's some great talent in that list of forwards, and I think it explains why Rashford made it. That there's so many good players ahead of him now.
Yeah, and Rob, 2 players that you obviously have been able to watch very closely, given the time up in Manchester. One who obviously now plays for Chelsea, in Cole Palmer. But Gareth Southgate said that this is our most complicated decision overall, because he is where he doesn't have a lot of options, for example, in left back, but in other positions he does have so many options, and that's one. Do you ever see, I suppose, a scenario where England could field the likes of Phil Foden and Cole Palmer, or does somebody, after coming off of one of their best seasons, have to take the bench?
Well, you know what? There is a lot of questions about that squad, but it may be that Gareth Southgate is looking and saying, I'm going to be more attacking in this tournament. And Phil Foden is probably the key to that, is in that he's had a great season. You can't not pick Phil Foden, but you can pick him out wide. You could pick him out wide on the left-hand side with Saka on the right, and then Kane up front with 3 out-and-out central midfielders. But if you move Phil Foden into the central midfield with Bellingham and with Declan Rice, that opens up another spot, because he's going to pick Saka, he's going to pick Harry Kane, but Foden moving inside gives you the opportunity to pick someone like, I don't know, a Gordon or a Cole Palmer or a Grealish. And that is a more attacking lineup than we've seen from Gareth Southgate in a lot of the games he's managed. It's all very well picking that attacking team against, I don't know, Serbia in a group game, but when it comes to the likes of France or Spain or someone or Portugal in the knockout rounds, it's a big decision to go that attacking. And really, it all centres on Phil Foden. He may be looking at this and going, well, Phil Foden has to play inside. He's played inside for City this season quite a lot because Kevin De Bruyne's not been there, and he's been absolutely fantastic. So actually what we're going to do, we're going to play Rice, we're going to play Bellingham and Foden in the middle, and then we've got an extra attacking option out wide. I'll believe it when I see it, because Gareth Southgate has shown not a great deal of inclination to be that attacking. It would be nice to see him do that. Obviously, it's a big risk in the biggest games, because often you want control of those games, and if you come up against a team like France, they can punish you if you're not controlling the game. But maybe that's what Gareth Southgate is looking at. Maybe he's looking at these players and saying, well, I've got loads of attackers. I haven't got many holding midfield players. I haven't got many defenders. Why don't we just pick as many of our good players as we possibly can and see where it takes us? I think a lot of England fans would find that relatively refreshing. But as I say, Gareth Southgate hasn't shown a great deal of inclination to do that. So I think a lot of England fans will believe it when they see it, when they line up for that first game.
I was going to say, Oggy, what's I suppose your take on Gareth choosing probably the most un-Gareth Southgate squad? Because I remember last Euros, we had a discussion of how Gareth Southgate with that England squad was pretty much like having, a McLaren and a Ferrari and a Benz in your garage, and then choosing to go out with the minivan with the way that he stacked up England to play. But now, again, he has the arsenal to play probably the sexy football everybody wants to see England play. But as Rob said, it's a matter of time if we actually see if he could do it. But what do you make on Gareth's, I suppose, decision to choose this kind of a provisional squad?
Well, you've got to play to your strengths, haven't you? And on this occasion, the strengths are in attacking positions because of injuries and because of a lack of, maybe similar talent further back. I think that's why he's done it. And I think, we're talking about Foden there and the situation with Luke Shaw earlier on. He could also play Bukayo Saka down the left. He's done that before as a kind of a left wing back. So that could be a solution to that kind of left-sided defender problem. I mean, you wouldn't ideally put Saka there, but if you do that with Saka, it enables you to play Foden. And I think maybe he's thinking along those lines, that 3 at the back, Saka down the left, all these attacking players, these great, but because you have to be honest, you look at England's group, it's a group that should come through quite comfortably. They haven't really got, in terms of the progression of the tournament, they haven't really got a tough game. Sorry, everybody, I know that sounds like English arrogance. They haven't got a game that they might worry about until potentially France in the semi-finals. Now, if that's the case, you can overload with attacking players. You can also do at City with Pep Guardiola. You can put 5-6 attacking players on the pitch and let them do what they do. That becomes more difficult against a team like France or Portugal later on. But still, if you've played that way for the first 4 or 5 games of the tournament and it's gelled, then go with it. And I think he's looking at what he's got and thinking, in the past couple of tournaments, I've been criticised for being a little bit negative when I've needed to be positive. Everyone thinks this is going to be his last tournament. I know he's not saying that publicly, but the vibe is that this is going to be Gareth Southgate's, farewell to the England job. If that's the case, you might as well go out with a bang. Go out with people not criticising for being negative. Go out playing attacking football. Then, if you are criticised for anything, it's for being ambitious and courageous. So, fair play. I think that's the way to go. I think he's made some big decisions on the squad. He's left out some big names. He picked a lot of attacking players. All he's got to do now is tell us when he's staying on going over to Man United, but we'll leave that on top.
Oh, that's a chat for another day. Rob, what do you make of it? Do you think that this is kind of like a farewell squad for Gareth Southgate, probably kind of giving the people finally what they want? And with the amount of youth we're seeing in here, or inexperience, but as Gareth Southgate said, they may have inexperience on an international level, but they have many caps for their clubs and are doing well. Do you feel like this is probably a teaser as to what we can expect from an England squad, even though he leaves, but for 2026?
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, that is a squad that's been picked with 2026 in mind. I mean, that doesn't really fit with what we know about Gareth Southgate, in that, there's a strong possibility that this may be his last tournament. So, why does he care about looking beyond Germany? Why does he care about how England will line up in the United States in 2 years' time? But when you include players like Wharton and Quansah and Curtis Jones, Kobbie, Mainoo, it suggests that they are looking beyond this tournament. Now, it may be that Gareth Southgate has just decided that he's going to pick all the players who are in form. He's going to ditch that kind of that old rule that we know about him, that he's going to pick the players that he knows, and he's just going to go out and play attacking football and go for it because it is his last hurrah. I would suggest, while Gareth Southgate has kind of left it open to whether he's going to actually continue in the England manager's job beyond this, I would suggest that maybe he is looking to 2026 and wants to give some experience to the likes of Eze and Mainoo and Curtis Jones and players like that, because they're the players who are going to form the core of your team in 2 years' time. I mean, obviously we'd have to wait until it's cut down to 26, because it's entirely possible that what's this, a 33-man squad, that all these young players are brought into the camp and then are cut before he names his 26-man squad, and then that thought goes out the window. It will be interesting to see how many of those young uncapped players actually make it. I mean, I make it 5 uncapped players in that 33-man squad. It'll be very interesting to see how many of those are actually on the plane to Germany, or how many have just been brought into the group to prepare them for maybe a start of their England career next season.
And Augie, just on what Rob said, because it will be interesting to see which of these uncapped players will actually be on that flight to Germany. Would you like to see a certain Jarell Quansah on that flight to Germany, who has been very impressive with Liverpool? I mean, we only really got to know him this season, but I know you told me off the camera that he reminds you of a great defender for England, and interestingly for Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get shut down for this, but he reminds me of Rio Ferdinand in the way that his pace, his physique, his reading of the game. I think I've been really impressed in the recent weeks with Liverpool. I think, he's a young kid, and he's obviously learning alongside that absolute master of his craft of Virgil van Dijk. And I can see next season under Arne Slot that Quansah becomes that Van Dijk's established partner. I think he's definitely a player for the future. Will he make this squad, for the Euro squad? I'm not too sure, but I think if he did go, I think he'd be more than capable of holding his own. He's played for Liverpool, one of the biggest clubs in the world. He's not letting anybody down. He's got an eye for goal. He's scored in the last 2 games in the Premier League. So Jarell Quansah's got a real talent, and Rio Ferdinand vibes. I think if you watch him play, he does play around the pitch like, and obviously Rio was an amazing player, and Rio's more Virgil van Dijk, isn't it? But I think whatever, Liverpool have got a great in hand. I think England have too. And I think it wouldn't be a bad thing to have him in the squad, because that back four, or those central defensive options, they've all had injuries. They've all had a bit of concern. They haven't got a lot of pace. Quansah's got that. So whether Gareth Southgate will be bold enough, I know it's a bold squad, but bold enough to pick him, I'm not sure. But I will disagree with things, but I don't think this is a squad for 2026. I think this is all about the here and now. I think to be honest, there's not who could he have picked otherwise. Who could he have brought back? Which experienced players would he have picked? He was never going to pick Raheem Sterling, because he's not been picked since the World Cup. Rashford, you can't argue with. Henderson, yes, his man. So I think this is a squad for here and now. And I remember I had a coffee with Gareth Southgate, probably went back maybe 6-7 years during the Confederations Cup in Russia, 2017, and we were chatting about the England job at the time, and he made the point that how much of an influence Steve Holland, his assistant, is on his view of the job. And he said that while Southgate has this look of developing players and planning for the future, he said Steve Holland worked at Chelsea with under the Roman Abramovich era. And Steve Holland made it clear time and time again, you have to do it for now. You can't wait for the future. You have to do it right now. I think this squad is about the right now. I think it's about picking your best players, picking strengths. 2026 can wait. I think it was somebody else's job. So I think Gareth Southgate is going to try and win Euros by being bold, by picking young players and just hoping that they can show how good they are on the international stage.
Rob, what do you think as well about Quansah, just as someone that definitely got to watch Rio Ferdinand up close? You think that's a good comparison Oggie's making, because he really has impressed so many people?
Yeah, I mean, fair play for his rise alone, because I think he started this season at Liverpool as probably their fifth choice centre-back. I don't think he even played for England's under-21s until I think his first call-up was this year, which shows you how well he's done at Liverpool. Obviously, he's benefited at Liverpool from lots of injuries, but that's often how we see young players come through. I mean, that's exactly how Marcus Rashford came through at Man United, taking the place of a more established injured player. Quansah has done that at Liverpool, and really with young players, all you can do when you're handed your opportunity is take it as best you can. Obviously, he's probably benefited from a Liverpool team who have played or have had better results this season than perhaps a few people were expecting at the start of the season. But you can't fault him, really. I mean, if you're a young player thrown into a massive club like Liverpool, where the spotlight is on you every single day, to come through a debut season like that and end it with a call-up, not just an England call-up, but a call-up for a provisional squad for a major tournament, that is a massive deal, and he deserves an awful lot of credit, an awful lot of respect. Obviously, now he'll want to make that final squad and go to Germany, and I think probably there is a chance. You look at those defenders, and we've talked about the injuries at left back. Now, Gareth Southgate isn't massively stocked with established centre backs either. Chances are he's probably going to go back to Harry Maguire and John Stones, but John Stones isn't playing for City at the moment, and Harry Maguire is injured at Man United and hasn't had a wonderful 2 years either. So, he may be looking at Jarell Quansah, may be looking at that and going, well, there's half a chance I can start that first game of the Euros. Why not? He probably didn't start the season at Liverpool thinking that he could establish himself in Jurgen Klopp's team, and he's managed to do that. So why not? If Gareth Southgate is going to be bold and pick young players, then that shouldn't stop at attacking young players. It should be defensive players as well. And Jarell Quansah has done more than enough. You look at that list, he's probably had the best season, or one of the best seasons out of any of those central defenders. So he deserves his chance if he gets it.
Sorry, I was just having a laugh with our producer, Tom, who's a Spurs fan, and he feels that Eric Dyer has been robbed. Anyways, that's a conversation for another day. Oggie may agree with him, but we won't get to that. Oggie, a position that I know is not both of y'all's specialty, but we do have to touch on it. Goalkeeping. England do have quite a few options there. No Nick Pope in this one. Jordan Pickford, of course, still the number one. We keep wondering season after season, is he going to be threatened with the rise that we saw of Dean Henderson at one point, as well as Aaron Ramsdale? But in the end, it is Jordan Pickford that stands strong. But Pope, does that surprise you, his omission?
Well, yeah. It's playing against Nick Pope, and for me, I think he's the best in terms of a technical goalkeeper. I think Pope's the best in terms of the traditional goalkeeper, good shot stopper, good in the air. But Nick Pope is not great with his feet, so that is a big issue certainly for the England team. Jordan Pickford does kind of play the ball, from one end of the pitch to the other. He's good with his feet, Jordan Pickford. So if Nick Pope was to play, it would change the way that England play a little bit. But you have to look at the three that are beneath Jordan Pickford. Aaron Ramsdale's barely played a game for Arsenal all season, so he's not in any shape to play. Dean Henderson's been out of the side at Palace. He had injuries. You could argue that Sam Johnston is a better bet, who's also at Palace. And James Trafford has been relegated with Burnley, and he lost his place in the team towards the end of the season. So for me, I am a little bit surprised, because at least with Nick Pope, that he's got experience. He had a great campaign in the Champions League with Newcastle. He would be the safe bet. But I said, you play Nick Pope, you have to change the way you play. I guess in a major tournament, you don't want to go from being a side that relies on ball playing goalkeeper at the back to one who doesn't really play the ball very well. So that's probably cost him place in the squad. But yeah, goalkeeping is an issue. If Jordan Pickford gets injured, England have got a big problem. And I don't know how they're not great.
Yeah. All right. Well, final question, I suppose, for both of you. Let's start with Rob. Rob, does this squad scream it's coming home? Because I know you guys love that. So let's have that conversation. Because again, it does speak to maybe a more attacking, flowing, sexy football type of way that we're not used to seeing Gareth Southgate. So could this finally be the one?
I mean, the talent is clearly there, but I'm surprised that England are going to Germany as favourites for the tournament. I think that France are favourites or should be favourites with very good reason. And I think if England are running into France in the semi-finals, I don't see England winning that game. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that Gareth Southgate picks this incredibly attacking, young, vibrant team that the whole country will get behind, and then they'll race through the groups and through the knockouts and win the whole thing. But I don't see them getting past France. It sticks in my mind every time we come to a major tournament that England have never won a major tournament knockout game against a major European nation outside of England. And I can't honestly see that changing this time.
Oggy, are you feeling a bit more positive, which I know is not the English way?
Well, the English way is to get overhyped and over optimistic and fall flat on your face. So I think it's going to be the same scenario this summer. I think, look, Jude Bellingham, world class. Harry Kane, best striker in the world, better than Erling Haaland. Phil Foden, brilliant. Bukayo Saka, amazing. But the problem is at the back. And Jordan Pickford has never let England down, but I do think they might have an issue in goal. And defensively, I just the Luke Shaw situation, the left back situation is a problem. Stones and Maguire, as Rob said, haven't been playing. If I was Gareth Southgate, I would seriously look at starting with Eberechi Eze and maybe to get through. But that would be such a massive call at this stage to kind of rip up your centre half partnership that you've had for maybe 4 or 5 years. But it's the defence that worries me a little bit with him. And I think as soon as they play against a team that can keep the ball, can pass the ball, can at the back, they lose because they haven't got the defensive strength to cope. So you're going to have to score 3 goals against strong opposition to win, and I just don't think you can do that. So I don't think they'll coming home, whatever you call it, is France or Germany or Portugal are going to win it.
Oggy may be the one Englishman that absolutely hates when people start saying it's coming home. Anyways, always a pleasure with Rob and Oggy. Thank you guys so much for watching. We definitely have plenty more to talk about, but we will do probably later on ESPN FC. That will be on the TV. Hope you tune into that one. But for us, it's bye for now.